All right. How's it going? Keith, Aaron, good to see you. We're going to get
Good
going
morning.
here in a couple of seconds. We'll allow people to trickle in over time. It looks like there's 20 or so folks already online here. And hi to everybody. Welcome to Lend Live. I'm Chris Carver, Lend's co-founder and CEO, and I really appreciate everybody for being here today. If you haven't joined us before, this is a part of our interview series where we talk to some of what we like to think is some of the most innovative event managers and marketers in the industry. And we're going to have a really great conversation in a moment here. But before I begin, I wanted to give a major shout out to my team, our engineering team, for creating this virtual experience and webinar platform that we're using today. We're just super excited about the potential of a platform like this for all sorts of virtual needs, from a roundtable and interviews like this to fundraising events and races like CrankedUp, to conferences, product launches, nonprofit galas, to webinars. It really is meant to support your entire event portfolio. So we're hoping event and marketing teams will see this as a tool to cultivate, engage, and really grow their community. So if you're interested in trying it out for free, you just go to our website. You can sign up at lend.com. And we'd love to hear your feedback, and feel free to test it out. So before I introduce our guests and my co-host, I just wanted to point out a few things to you. So over on the right-hand side, or my right-hand side, your right-hand side, you'll see that there is a chat window. If you have any thoughts, comments, or want to introduce yourself like Aaron chatted in there earlier, please use it. And then there's a questions tab as well. You can put the questions in the chat, but there's also a questions tab just to the right. Feel free to ask anything in there. We also have a Q&A tab that's pretty fun. I know Aaron's working on a couple of fun little polls that it'd be cool to have you guys go and fill out, and you'll be able to see the results in real time. So definitely go and check it out. So with that said, I wanted to introduce and welcome my co-host for today's interview, and Lend's marketing manager, Aaron Chesterton. Say hi, Aaron.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
And our esteemed guest and friend of mine, former coworker, and the co-creator of CrankedUp, Keith Williams. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm doing very well. It is an honor to be here today.
Nice. So I wanted to give a quick little backstory on how this kind of all came together, or how Lend or Chris and Keith connected here. So when was it, Keith? It was back in November when we started chatting?
It was.
So I reached out to Keith just for feedback on what we were doing, some of the stuff you're seeing today. And he immediately said, you know what? I'm working on an idea and would love your help. And so that really kind of allowed us to take the next 30 days. I think we had a 30-day, time horizon to really roll out some really cool features. And now it's kind of gone into, we're 5 days away from our third CrankedUp, right? Isn't that right, Keith?
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Who would have thought? I didn't intend it to be this way, but there it is.
That's awesome. So where I wanted to start with all this is, how in the heck did you think of a race in the world's biggest pain cave party would be so popular? Where did that come from?
Well, I didn't focus it on popularity, because I'm not very popular as a human being or as a person. So I never win the popularity contest. But I think what it centered around really was, obviously, as many people here, the pandemic changed many of our organizations, our lives, how we interact on a business, dramatically. So I think the pandemic hit, and you can see behind me, I'm an events person. I love events. Yes, I can talk to every single medal and bib, but don't do that, because I'll be here for about 8 weeks and bore you to death. But I'm an event person, and I love events. I think they're transformational for human beings. I care passionately about them. I also love technology. I've been in technology for 20 plus years, where I believe technology can solve some of the greatest problems in the world. And, you know, being in technology and events, you know, it just fell apart, you know, come the pandemic, and there was no security or assurance for anybody out there, whether you're a participant looking for races, looking for things to do, you know, or an event organizer looking to actually have something that's going to happen. It was just uncertainty all the way through, and there was not much confidence across anywhere, with so many unknowns. So what I wanted to create is one, from an athlete point of view, although I'm a wannabe athlete, I wouldn't actually, my people that know me wouldn't say I'm an athlete. I'm just a wannabe. But being a participant or an athlete, I was looking for things to do. And there's lots of virtual things sort of like beginning to pop up, and events. So there was things like the Ironman virtual reality thing that kind of came in. There was also like Red Bull time lapse. So I was started to kind of get engaged with these virtual communities and rewards and everything like that, and these activities. But ultimately, I love the challenge, but I always felt on my own. I was always alone. Yes, I was sort of like maybe part of this hashtag or part of these rewards, and I could see how many people had signed up in a console somewhere, but I wasn't interacting with anybody, and I missed that. So I sort of like did an event, you know, in September, which was the Red Bull time lapse, and you know that was the final straw for me, where I was just missing this entertainment side. I wanted to have an entertainment aspect to the experiences that I was having. So then I sort of like looked at sort of like some data around some of the events what people were doing. I was looking at all of the different technologies people were using indoors or at home, like Zwift. You know, Zwift was doing something like 1 million miles a day in 2019 in September. Fast forward to September 2020, it was 4 million miles a day on Zwift. So there's 4 times. You had the Peloton, you know, all these different things where people were starting to use indoor sort of like, you know, fitness devices. And I thought, well, how can we lift this up and bring it to life and actually connect human to humans in a very different way? Because I think one thing that we all crave, and what technology should do, is should be able to bring and build new connections. And that's what I was looking for.
So can you describe what CrankedUp is then?
Yeah, so essentially it's a time-based challenge where you need to try and ride as far as you can against other people at home in a virtual stadium, virtual arena. That arena or virtual stadium is Lend, because what we're looking for is a challenge where actually it feels just like a real event. It has all of the different elements of a real event. It's just in this virtual world, and that's what it is.
So you started thinking about the idea of CrankedUp and the idea of the world's biggest pain cave party. Walk me through the first few steps you took to get CrankedUp off the ground.
Well, I think, as I said, it went back to an event I did in September, October, which was the Red Bull time lapse, which was a 24-hour challenge, and it was a similar concept in terms of how far can you ride, but all it had for me was a leaderboard. So what I did is I sort of, you know, I got a team together of 4 people. We was all riding for 24 hours trying to get, you know, the top spot of the leaderboard, but the event just gave us a leaderboard. So what I do is I created this own sort of like, you know, conference tool that I just invited my friends to and said, look, let's just stay in there for 24 hours, and we'll interact and we'll chat and we can get people to come in and meet us and greet us. And then also I get my brother, who's in events, who hasn't worked since March because he does weddings and conferences. He hasn't worked since March. He's a great DJ. I'll get him in to play us some music, just to keep us going. So I did that event, and I asked my 3 buddies and everybody else, how did it go? And they literally all sort of like shot me, you know, a 6-minute video and said, this is awesome. And I just felt that there was this human experience and feeling and camaraderie, and there was event buzz on the day. There was this event buzz after the event, checking the things out and talking about stuff and talking about all the banter and the things we talked about. and we had friends greet us, and they was tuning in and like wishing us luck. And I thought, well, if I can do that, and if I can have that experience, how can I multiply that, to many more people? How can more people have that same experience? So it started with that as a validation, and then talking to you, because I had this idea in my mind how I could try and replicate my own individual team experience back in September to a real life mass experience for everybody else. So that's where it started, as just an idea.
Yeah, and for those that haven't seen the video, when you first came into the virtual venue here on Lend, there is a recap video that Keith and the team created that really accentuates a lot of the buzz and the energy that is really generated around the event, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So when you hosted the next event that we worked with you on, it was really the first real Cranked Up. Was there a moment in time where you said, wow, this thing has some legs. This thing is really interesting. I know you were excited about it from early on with all of your experience in building businesses and things of that nature. I'm curious, what was there a moment where you really kind of felt like you want to take it to the next level?
Well, I thought it was a dumb idea, because who would want to be in a pain cave?
Yeah.
And then also you're in a pain cave, showing everybody else you're in a pain cave, sweating, not looking all that great, and other people can see you. But apparently, people like to show their pain caves and show them, riding and suffering. So I think the validation came with when I started to speak to others about a stupid idea. Everybody kind of got the energy of it. They got the energy of this broadcast where people were normally used to seeing professionals go and actually watch professionals, like, actually train or participate in an event or give classes. They're used to just watching. They're not used to actually being broadcasting, being participants. So they are the actual participants that are broadcasting themselves. And then with live music, so when you start to talk about this virtual arena and making things possible, making things guaranteed, and an event that will happen, everyone just seemed to get excited that we spoke to. That was validation. And then also once we started to see people sign up and look at the demographic, you could just see there was actually quite an interesting makeup coming through in terms of the gender split. It was becoming about 32 to 33% women. So whereas a normal like cycling event, that's a general, open to general public, you may get 10 to 20, whereas we're seeing 30+%. So it just kind of showed a bit of validation that we were onto something, and that was it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool. Keith, I've got a quick question. So just knowing there are a lot of event and marketing folks like myself on this interview, what advice would you have for them to start evolving their tactics? Something that you wish you knew when you started?
Well, I don't know whether this is the right answer, but we had a policy of, by the way, this is not my full-time role. This is an experiment. This is a dumb idea. So we set ourselves a zero marketing budget. So I'm not sure that's going to make a lot of people happy. But the reason for that, so I'll answer your question, Erin, sorry, in a sec. But the reason for that is that we felt that the way this event was built up, it was mostly for different reasons. It wasn't the money wasn't the motivation. So to get that flywheel in marketing, you need to put some money into it, and you need to have an injection of cash to sort of like get momentum. But we said we're not going to have a budget. So I would say the key things for us was I think two things. One is doing the basics, brilliantly, in terms of having the right assets, a good website, explaining the event well, with really good call to actions on the website or wherever we're posting our sort of like content. So doing the basics brilliantly, and then I would say the second part is the hustle, and the hustle is going into partners, sharing the story, getting people sort of like buying into it, you know, and the authenticity of it and the spirit of the event, and getting people excited about it, not just partners that you want to work with, but also giving them the assets to make them successful as well. So, you know, we created assets and a playbook for all of our partners where they had the assets that actually they could then send out to their databases and their distribution lists. And then thirdly, is just looking at all the data. You know, what's the data telling us? You know, what's the insights? And looking at the whole kind of funnel, so to speak, you know, in the marketing side, and then also looking at the event side to see if it's happening. But from a marketing perspective, it was those three areas: brilliant basics, you know, making sure we sort of like hustle, and then look at the data.
And so I'd love to dive into the tech and what you were looking for a little bit. So do you mind describing the structure of the event and the functionality you were looking for in a platform? Obviously, we started talking, but I'm really curious what your mindset was at that point, what you were looking for.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting one, because all of us have sat on probably 8 conference calls, you know, a day for the last 12 months, and there's different solutions out there, but usually you can only have, you know, this interaction, and then, you know, if you want to give someone else their own room or something like that, you have to give them permissions. So and there's no real production on top of these a lot of these conferencing software. So I was looking for a few elements. First of all, I was looking for a production that I could skin something around. And then the structure inside it, I wanted to make sure it had like a main stage, just like you would go to a real event. I wanted to make sure there is, where people come into an event, they've got a holding area or a stage that they can go and see. And then teams or people will go off into their own areas and create their own team areas or create their own places where they're hanging out. So I wanted to empower people to create their own hangouts within an event. And that was the structure that I was most keen on, because I didn't want to be the only one that had the permission or the access to move people around the event. I wanted them to freely go wherever they wanted to go, you know, without me having to sort of like say, you go here, you go there, and manage it. So you can go to, and then if you're looking at the production side, you can go to different applications where they might have their own instances, and then you have to go to this production company that has to then bolt it all together. And you say, right, move this to there, and you're basically becoming a production company and a director. Whereas me, I wanted to be someone where I can be in control. It's really easy to use. I can put this production on top of around this idea, and then also my participants are empowered as well to do what they want to do, and have their own experience and move around, which I couldn't see anywhere else.
That's great. That's great. So with that in mind, I'm curious, what was really going to be the key determinant of success for that first event? Or did you have certain metrics you were looking for, or what was going to be the driver for that?
People on their bikes in their pain caves, number one. Then the other side was adoption in the platform itself in terms of Lend. So I wanted them to have a good experience to be able to sign in and actually understand the structure of the virtual arena, and adopt it. That was measure one. And then measure two was engagement on the day. Like how engaged were they in the experience itself, in terms of how the interactions with polls, with chats, how many people created their own, what we was calling team pits, and how many people was customizing their own team areas, and calling them what they want. And so it was mainly product adoption. Are they in? Can they check it? Or are they in? Because I can see if they've actually logged in and they've got an account. And how many emails do I get say I can't log in? That was one. ease of use. And then the other one was, you know, how highly engaged were they at the event?
That's awesome. So as people get back to the physical world, Where do you think this type of technology fits in that construct?
I think it can fit in so many different areas. It's quite scary, actually. I think the limitations are of your own imagination. And the reason why I say that is, through the platform, it can be either a broadcast on a particular day. So, we call this a hybrid experience now, maybe events where you've got this physical event that's actually going to happen, and that's got a capacity and it's in a location, but then you've got these, consumers that actually can't and may not want to go to this location. They want to have the event brought to their iPads or their desktops or their mobiles. They want to consume content or that event in a different way. So I see it kind of having a physical location, physical audience, but the ability to also interact with that event from a broadcast. I mean, that's just one example. But if you look at even events, we talk to many charities and organizations that are doing different types of events, and I'll use one of them, like gaming. On certain platforms, you don't really get the controls or the data or the things you need to do. But we talk to charities that want to then host a gaming competition. So you can have, even within this platform, we could have multiple different rounds and rooms where people are gaming, and then they get to the next level and play off in the final. So it's endless, absolutely endless. What we can use in terms of this tool-like functionality, endless.
Cool, Keith. And bringing things back to the marketing side, once you solidified that tech you were going to use, how did you approach marketing? And mainly, let's start with targeting. Did you have a persona in mind when you went to send these invites out? Did you already have a really targeted list? Was a lot of it organic, word of mouth? Would love to just hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the first things first. I had no list. I had no database. So I did have one. It was me and my mum. So it was basically just my mum that was generally a participant. No, I'm kidding. It was just me. So the list was non-existent. So, but we did have a persona, and that's something that we kind of articulated quite early on to say, who are these people? And generally speaking, they were, cyclists that had a turbo. So we looked at their groups that they liked, either on Twitter or Facebook. So they liked certain cycling groups, or they was in a Zwift group, or a sort of like a kicker group. So we looked at the different groups, and then we also looked at the type of people they followed. So sports personalities, technology, because we felt that these were quite tech advanced people. So was they following different emerging technologies, and were like gaming or different devices? So we were just profiling someone to be, they're a cyclist, they have a turbo, they like Zwifting or whatever, or Peloton, and also they're quite technical, and they like sports. In terms of sports, they're a fan of some sports personalities. And then we just started to look at that audience, and just to see, does this audience exist and how big is it? And that gave us validation to say, yeah, well, this is a big audience. Then we could start targeting into that. When I say targeting, we just sort of done our own thing.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Keith, what were some of the tactics there in doing your own thing? You created a video, or you had that test, kind of that beta event that really helped you create some of those assets and get at least some testimonials or something. And what were the tactics to use that getting up to this first event?
Yeah, I think it was a hard thing. We had no logo, we had no name, we had no website, we had nothing. So we literally had a blank piece of paper. So some of the critical things that we wanted to create was assets. So first of all, what's it called? What's the brand? So we did sort of like a little bit of sketch of sort of like the brand and with guidelines and how we would describe it, and then we'd start looking at the type of people that would this appeal to, and then start creating creatives from that. So, you know, bearing in mind we was in lockdown, and we still are in lockdown, but we were in lockdown, so I couldn't even ask friends to go and take a photo, and we had no way to do anything, you know. So the model was me, because I couldn't go and meet anyone. So I just got some photos, we got some creative images going, and we've done some short videos, and we did like maybe longer ones around 45 seconds to 60 seconds, just to sort of like get people to be able to digest different types of information. And because it was a new type of event, we did want to spend a little bit of time doing a 45-second, 60-second hype video, just going through the quick elements of what it is, and just to get people to feel it, because it was this event didn't exist before. It didn't exist. People didn't get it. So we needed to very clearly explain what it is. But that was also a challenge, because, as I say, we was in lockdown. So, and I'm not the best model.
So if this was an in-person race, I don't know if you've thought about this at all, but say you already had an existing in-person race or an in-person event, because a lot of the folks on this interview probably do. Do you think you would have done anything different, and would that have helped or hurt, or what do you think your approach would have been if there was already a Cranked Up that people came to in one location?
I think we would have already had a database, which would have been quite nice.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have, and we would have had probably more creatives. But if it's an in-person event, are you asking if we were going to do an in-person event again, and we could change it?
Well, I think a lot of people that potentially are on here that, you know, have their own events have been doing their events for years, right? And they've made that transition. They probably transitioned in the last 12 months to virtual. And I'm curious, do you think that transition, how you would have made that transition if Cranked Up were an existing brand that you had in the past?
I think it's a hard question, because I didn't have the event, but I think and I have done events in the past. I think it would have been, I think two parts. One is I would have missed being in a location, seeing the participants and being part of that. But on the other side, knowing what events are, it takes a lot of work in terms of permits, closing down streets, getting cities closed down, risk assessments, barriers, arches, checking out the tourists, making sure everyone's okay with it, and the locals, all of the different stakeholders that you've got to manage. I probably wouldn't miss any of that, to be honest, because what was really weird for me, and I'm not in events day in, day out, but what was really, really bizarre to me is the event, when we went, the start gun went, I pressed a broadcast button.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I didn't have barriers. I didn't have health and safety. Now, bearing in mind, I'm not saying let's not do events, because I love events. I'm not saying don't do them, because please do them. We need them. The first thing I'll do is go and do a real event. But I will say I will be definitely doing virtual events, because they're very convenient for consumers. People are consuming things differently now in their homes, and you can only look at the growth of, you know, the fitness. I think there's something like 2.4 billion fitness app downloads in the last 12 months. So you can see on that how the popularity of people wanting to do things at home. And I always think, is this the Blockbuster and Netflix part of that example, where people may not want to go to the gym so much now and go to physical places? So I think it is critical for our success to have both on option, and actually either have one or the other, or they come together and actually be both in one particular event. So if I was going to answer your question about now, I would actually love to have people out on the roads, cycling their bikes, they've got their Garmins or whatever it is, they can still log their time, they can come into the leaderboard, or they can just stay at home, because many people don't want to go out on the roads, they don't feel safe, or it's not convenient. You know, so, and they can have a different experience, and that's what it's about. It's just making sure we can bring it all together.
Definitely. I'm curious, and I don't want to skip this point over. Is this was also a fundraiser? It was also a way for you to give back. Can you describe what you did there and how you got your partners and just the general feeling that added to the overall event?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been in, there's the reason why I'm in technology is for two reasons. One is to connect experiences to people to make their lives mean more. And I've been in technology for that. The second is impact. You know, how do we make a bigger impact as individuals to communities in the world? So anything I do always revolves around how do we bring an experience and how do we make an impact? And the impact side was really important. So we brought in, you know, a couple of charities that I was quite close to, but also they had a, you know, they had cycling database. So we wanted to leverage the charities and their audience because we didn't have one ourselves. And also we could get the charities, you know, didn't have any events. So the charities in terms of peer-to-peer fundraising was, as we know, it was just declining. In the UK, 22% of all that's giving in the UK, which is 10.4 billion a year, 22% of that is an event fundraising. So without events, it's a dire situation for charities. So I wanted to help charities to create a fundraiser. So we got two charities, and they became very successful. I don't know if you want me to talk about even an experience we had on the day on fundraising. Do you want me to talk about that?
Go for it. Love it.
Yeah, so I think what was really cool about the day is where it's all about content, and we can do whatever we want with content. So we had one particular person, John Bram, who was raising money for pancreatic cancer UK. And his wife actually was Marsha was riding as well, and Marsha's had breast cancer, and John unfortunately has lost his brother to cancer as well. So they were very sort of like gracious, but also very keen to do something. So anyway, John said, and he messed around with me a little bit and said, look, if I raise £1,000, and he was cycling 12 hours, he was doing a solo 12 hours. And he said, if I raise £1,000 today, Marsha said she'll shave my hair off, which is his wife. So that to me was just brilliant, because one, he had a lovely head of hair. I don't have a lovely head of hair, and I wanted to see someone else look like me. So you know, anyway, so I was the commentator at the CrankedUp in the first one. So we was talking about John has his own team pit. He's got his own room. Go check him out. He just said if he raises £1,000, he's actually going to get his head shaved off. So lo and behold, within a few hours, he'd actually raised £1,000. But the point is I was always given an update on how much he'd raised. Oh, it's £762, only X amount to go. Come on, everybody, we can do it. And they're obviously sharing the same. So we had people that was actually participating and the spectators in the event checking out John's page, and he smashed his target. And then what we said, John said, look, I'm not going to shave my hair off while I'm riding my bike. So what we'll do, can you do it after the event is like the race is finished? So at 10:05, we announced the event, because we could do that. We can do whatever we want because everyone's there. We said, meet us in John's team pit, and you're going to have a live hair shaving. So we literally, after the race had finished, we signposted everybody into John's team pit. So we were in his house. And then there's Marsha shaving his hair. And that's the beautiful thing about the event, because you can be creative as you want, and you can direct people to wherever you want. It really is as far as your imagination can go, So anyway, that was so cool. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's incredible. Wow.
Cool. And I would love to know as well, Keith, from an analytics perspective, because I know we talked data and how important that is. What were those analytics that you were measuring or the metrics you were tracking in this virtual setting as opposed to what your traditional approach, and how did that change?
I think in terms of the event day itself, that was different because we were looking for people logged in, are people logged in? And what we did before the event, we actually opened up access to the event arena to get them. Just think about a triathlon when you set your bike up the day before, so we enable people to come in 2 days before the real event, and we gave them instructions to check out the venue, to create their own team pits. They was just really fascinated by this new experience and this new arena. And because we also, so first of all, to answer your question, logged in, are they coming in to log in? Because then we can see how many people signed up to how many people we had, as in people in our event. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing was on the event was the interaction. How many chats did we have, on the main stage? How many chats were we having inside the team pits? How many team pits were created? How many banners did people put on their team pits? Because we wanted people to personalize their team pits, which is their own area. It's hard for me to describe it because it's not here. I'm not sure you got an example of that, Chris, but what we wanted to do is get people to create their own team pits, personalize them. So it's just all about engagement and interaction with all of the tools. So that was what we was looking at. And then the other stat was connections, because on Lend we had this rider, we called it a rider AI. So we asked interests as people signed in to know what they're interested in, where we could then match them to riders just like themselves. What was quite interesting, actually, we had 22% new connections. 22% of people that signed up to the event actually met someone else through a connection that they didn't know before. So that's pretty cool. So those are the things, but yeah, there's adoption, like logging in, and then just engagement. How engaged were they? And we looked at things like how many people were viewing the stage, because all on the Lend, we get all the analytics around session times, how long were people logged in, how many percentage of people were actually on stage, watching the stage, how many chats we had. Just on the main stage, we had like 1,300, I think it's 60 odd chats just on the main stage. It was just insane. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, so these stats don't just happen. I mean, I love the idea that you opened up the event a few days before, like, what you would experience at an Ironman or a race with an expo, or, any, people start, even at like something like Dreamforce, people start coming in a few days before and you feel the buzz of the event. But that takes, there are tactics behind it. So I'm curious, what were some of the things that you did to drive that interaction and drive that engagement as a event manager to ultimately get the results that you got? So I know you were creating guides and things of that nature, but can you kind of walk through a few of those?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's pretty basic. And but I think it's so basic, people don't do it, or not many people do it. I literally took a step back, bearing in mind, I probably had to take a step back because it was quite a technical event. Because if you imagine you've got people at home on the turbo with a screen or two, like on Zwift or whatever device, whatever course they're riding, then they're also logged into this virtual arena. So it was quite a tech. So I literally did the most basic thing and took a step back and said, if I were doing this, what would I need to know? What would be the problems? And also not just the problems, but how am I going to make people excited about this by solving problems? So it's not like, oh, here's a technical guide and it's really boring. It's like, no, these are the cool things you can do, but it's actually it's educating them as well. So what we did is we literally walked through about, how are people going to interact before the event? How can we get them set up for success? So on the start time, they're ready. They're pumped up, they're hyped up, they don't need to worry about anything technical, they're ready. All they need to focus on is the experience of that day. So I just took a step back, but we did, as you say, I think the biggest thing we did was we over communicated, but quite simply, but it was all mostly videos. So we did a lot of videos. I'm sure you remember my personal virtual tour of, CrankedUp Stadium, and we just did a lot of that, and that was all on Instagram, it was on YouTube, it was on our website, it was on email. So we just created a good guide.
It's interesting, the personal videos that you did, not a lot of people do. And I'm curious, from your perspective, was it pretty easy to do it? Did you script those out? And then just briefly, if you don't mind, kind of walk through how you did that, because that is a great simple tactic that I think not a lot of people take on.
I literally just went through the journey of a participant. There was no structure. That was the structure I had. I'm going to get an email. I need to get access. I log in. What do I see? The lobby. Here's the lobby. And then I got the main stage. What's on the main stage? That's where the music's going to be. What music do we have? Here's the music we're going to have for all of the playlists. Okay, and then go and check this out. So it was just kind of like, all it was is just describing the event landscape, just like you would a marathon or a triathlon. Say, right, here's the stage, here's the expo, here's the transit, here's the swim start. It's just taking them through the experience and helping them.
Yeah, that's it. I know it sounds simple, and it was, but it was obviously really effective. So that's really, really awesome.
We have a question from the chat that I'd love for you to answer, Keith, specific to the experience for your attendees. Did you get any feedback specific from them after the event about how the onboarding experience was, engagement during the event, anything that really stood out to you?
Yeah, we had, I think there's one piece of feedback that we missed actually, and we didn't do the best of jobs. We wasn't covering Facebook, but we've done all this so quickly, and we created a Facebook page, obviously, and people were trying to communicate to us through the Facebook chat, and we just missed it, where they were trying to log in and they had a couple of questions, and it was just one person we missed. Even if it's one person, it was just so terrible. But yeah, I think it was just. Yeah, I think it was just that, really, just making sure you've got your channels covered in terms of where you're communicating.
The experience overall what was the feedback like? Were you surprised?
I was. We did an NPS. Considering this is a first event, we got an NPS of 8.3, which was pretty good. I would have liked it to have been a bit higher than that. Never rest. But I think part of it was this was a new event for quite a few people. So the feedback was, some of it was people wanted to ride the same course. Like they wanted to ride exactly the same course. And some people was sort of like asking, because we had what we did. We had these people that was coming in that was cyclists, are technical, they want to race. But they're also there for fun, right? But we had some really serious people. So the serious people were like, I thought this was anti-drafting. Why are you letting people draft? So where we got knocked down was the really serious people wanted everything like precision timing and anti-draft and a rule book. We had no rule book. So maybe we could have done a better job, sort of like, kind of saying, look, this is because we had a leaderboard, a live leaderboard. This is serious. It's a challenge, but this is not like UCI or whatever it is, sort of like event. This is something for us all to get together and connect and have fun, listen to some tunes all the way through the day. I'm going to shout out to a load of different people. It's fun, but we had people like taking this quite seriously, and maybe we didn't meet their expectation. But the experience, we had really good feedback. Brand new. This is crazy. Can't believe you did this. Lots of interactions. It was fun. Usually Zwifting or turboing or whatever it is so boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a something I need to do. But this brought a very, very new dynamic, and they met new people. They had fun. I think that's the biggest thing. Lots of interactions and good fun.
I really like the fact that your participants were creating post-event videos. I don't know if it was for their organizations because you did have a bunch of nonprofit partners or what, but that's one of those things that I would assume the event directors would absolutely love because it's just additional marketing for what you did, and it allowed you to see the event in the eyes of the participant. It was really cool to see those videos come out.
Yeah, it was. And I think the reason why we got a lot of those is people want to show their friends that they're doing something new and radical and cool. And they like to show their pain caves, suffering. People love it. So this was just something brand new. People could take a selfie of and just have a story about what they're doing. So we were actually, bearing in mind we were new, we didn't have an Instagram channel till very late on. But we actually had a higher engagement than the average Instagram channel that you'd normally expect. So it was, I think, 20% above the normal average engagement rate on Instagram because there was so much user-generated content coming through. Our reel was unbelievable. The reel was just like bang, bang, bang. I mean, it's like, when is this going to finish? It was unbelievable. It was great.
That's great. And before Aaron jumps into the next question, for the folks that are on, we're going to jump to any additional questions in a moment. We have a couple more, but if you don't mind just throwing in a few of your questions right now so that we can start to get to them. I know we're coming up on the hour here in 10 minutes. So just want to make sure we get to any and all of those that you might have. So go for it, Aaron.
Yeah. So kind of switching gears here to sponsorship opportunities. Did you use any sponsors for this event? And what do you feel the opportunity or impact a sponsorship could have in a virtual setting?
Yeah, I think in this stage of the event, we didn't ask for money. We just asked for support, and because we didn't have a database. And I think we wanted some credibility. So our goal was credibility, are the logos to build trust in the brand of the event, and then also a database, to help us unlock that. But I think from a moving forward for any type of event like this, I think it's a sponsor's dream, actually, because I think there's so many events where you've got so much wasted sponsorship money potentially going where the audience isn't really engaging with a banner and this and that, or a goodie bag. I just think those times, and also people are very environmentally friendly or environmentally conscious now. So I think whatever sponsors and brands are doing, I think they're always looking to do something different and then build engagement with the participants. And I think through the platform, we did have an expo area, so all of the partners that supported us, we actually had an expo area inland where we showcased all of the different partners, and then we made sure that the partners could have content coming through the day as and when they would want it. So we showed quite a lot of videos from partners, and they was all interesting videos. It was all good videos. So we had bike manufacturers, retailers, sharing nutrition advice, new product guides, technical advice on gear. And we literally had an agenda. So what we did with our sponsors was we said, what part of the agenda do you want? Because we could create your own room, so we can signpost people to this particular content at a certain time. And that's what we did, and the engagement was really, really high. It was unbelievable. It's so easy to do. And it's great for sponsors. They really can connect with the attendees, riders, whatever your event is, in a different way.
Yeah, the accessibility component there, and then really they can get so much more engaged with everyone now than years past. So that's another exciting opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we did I don't know whether what was very important to us is we made sure our participants that knew this would not be happening without our sponsors. I know that's I know everyone may do that, but we was sort of like, even with Lend, the partnership that we had, because of Lend, it meant that we could open up the arena to spectators because of the volume or the scalability of the event. So we did 2 weeks before the event. Our first one was on the 20th of December, just before Christmas. We said, look, the world is disconnected right now because of Lend and all of our partners. Invite your family, friends. They don't need to pay anything. Let's just bring them in and get them to watch you do something spectacular. So we're always celebrating our partners and getting them, making sure that they get the credit that they deserve.
Yeah, the global reach, it was really interesting to see with the event. I mean, you have people from all over the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had people in China, we had people in the US, we had people in South Africa, we had people all around Europe, as you'd expect. But what was quite interesting, some of these teams were in different worlds, so their time zones were kind of a bit freaky. So, you would be, because our event was 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. GMT, but, if you are, handing over to a teammate in sort of like China, and it's 8 o'clock your time PM, it's sort of like early in the morning for China, so it was kind of like quite interesting. But that was part of this team pit, this virtual team pit, where people could have the camaraderie and sort of organize themselves just to make sure they could hand over like a relay. Yeah.
Just one last question from my end before we hop into Q&A from everyone who's attended. I'm curious, you put obviously a lot of time, effort, and energy into creating the event and day of. You mentioned the NPS survey after the event, but I'm curious if you had any other post-event tactics that you ran to really help maximize engagement and continue to carry out the momentum and the excitement from that event day of.
Yeah, so I think we could have done more. We can always do more. But one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to own a hashtag. So, we created a hashtag, we are cranked up. We made sure there was no other connotations to the hashtag, but we wanted to sort of like own a hashtag. And then we wanted the conversation to be built on that hashtag. So, and we did ask the community we made them feel part of a community and a tribe, and a special one at that. And if they could help us grow it. So we asked for their support to help us grow our community, which everybody owns, and that's the level of engagement we did. But also we then kind of started to dot in these little what we called fast and furious, because we was doing 12-hour. Our first one was 12 hours long, 12-hour challenge, and then we just dotted in 2-hour, what we called fast and furious. So it's just like really simple, really easy, go as fast as you can, for 2 hours, and it just gave some people something to do at the end of each month. So that was really nice. It was just like, and sorry, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but we actually added in bundles in the ticketing. So we didn't know what people would do. You could either sign up for January, February, March, or you could actually take a bundle. And literally the majority, nearly everybody, took the bundle because they wanted the sort of like the end of Jan, because it just gave them something to do, a purpose, and something fun. That wasn't too heavy. It was on their terms, in their home, just for 2 hours, 10 a.m. to 12 midday, fun, furious, fast, go. So that's what we did.
Awesome. I love those ideas. I think, it's a lot of missed opportunity after the event, and I want people to just understand how much value you can continue to drive. And so thank you for sharing those ideas.
No problem.
Yeah, and Keith, I'm curious. So there's 2 questions I have. Number one, you deal with a lot of nonprofits as it is today. Do you have any advice for them as they're kind of working through virtual? I mean, we're obviously 12 plus months into this. So I'm curious, from your learnings, what are you telling the nonprofits that you speak with?
Well, I think there's short path and a mid to longer term path, I think, we're still not over the pandemic. So we've still got ways to go. So that we still need to be innovative to actually create funding for charities that desperately need it. So I think the virtual is something that is guaranteed. It can be there. The pandemic doesn't affect a virtual event and putting one on. And then I think the way the consumers are interacting, and the second part, the other ways the consumers are interacting with physical activity is very different to how they were doing it a year ago. Virtual events have been there for 4 or 5 years, but they were quite flat. And I think those experiences were quite flat. And there's lots of different platforms out there trying to do stuff, and it wasn't really that smooth as an experience for the consumer. It was very sort of like all over the place. Whereas now, I think because of the last 12 months, the advancement on virtual has literally just accelerated beyond our wildest dreams, but it's just the start. They say it takes 82 days to change your behavior. And I think people's behaviors have changed. I'm not saying they won't go back to some extent, but people will look for convenience. When will it be where people won't wear masks? When will people's confidence come back? So I would say there is a now, do it now, carry on, but also with a digital advancement and the convenience of how the consumers want to interact with physical activity, you have to do it. You have to have it in your toolkit, not just as a solid long-term strategy, but also as a hedge. Nothing stops a virtual event.
And then the last one for me, what's next for CrankedUp? What do you have on the time horizon? I know you have something coming up in 5 days, but just can you give a little overview of what we can expect?
Yeah, I think CrankedUp, who knows? I think CrankedUp, it may be something where the people that are involved in it, we may like power sort of like some other people's events. So now we've got the sort of like the experience in terms of the platform, how people interact. We've got the entertainment side, which is my brother's, so we can do all the entertainment. So we may have so it could be a branded event, but powered by CrankedUp and Lend, obviously. So that's one area where we just are the production for it. And then the other area is continue to probably come back in the autumn and the winter for another CrankedUp sort of series. And then in the middle of that, we could look at sort of like a membership where we're doing more of a an open and accessible class, classes. Because if you think about Zwift, it's great training. If you look at Peloton, apparently it's not for serious riders, and you have to have a lot of money to go and get a Peloton. So we may be able to sit right in the middle where we can have a lot more accessibility, to Erin's point, around people coming in to just have some fun, and get trained and do some good workouts on the bike. That's using awesome. whatever platform they want in terms of whatever bike they want.
That's helpful. And where can they go if you wanted people wanted to check out your race in the next 5 days? Where do you want them to go?
Go to crankedup.co.uk.
Okay, cool. Well, Keith, I really appreciate you doing this today, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm excited for the future for both CrankedUp and Lend, and for everybody that is still on, and for folks that will be watching it. We'll make this available for people to be able to watch and see the transcript over the next few days here. But if you are hosting an event or webinar of any type, definitely check out the Lend platform. And we're actually, Erin, do you want to talk about the checklist that you've put together for the folks that attended, and we'll be watching this over the next few days, month, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so I'll share the link now in chat, and then I will follow up with it as well for everyone who's registered. But it really just maps out the key components that you need from 1 month out, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, and then 1 week out from your event. So the link is within the chat now to really just help you stay organized, time things out effectively, and prepare your promotional plan. As Keith said, that's really the foundation. Think of it as building a house, and if you don't get these things right, it's just the foundation is going to crumble. So we really created this in mind with step-by-step instructions to keep you charging ahead to a successful event.
And we'll email it out to folks as well, right, Erin?
Yeah. Yep. Email as well as the recording of this event. So you can rewatch it anytime and have access to everything you need.
That's great. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Keith, Erin, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we'll talk to you all soon. And then we'll have another interview with an incredible marketing brain, marketing mind over the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited to share that, but be on the lookout for that next interview.